Shavua Tov, Shalom Aleichem, and Chodesh Tov. So to recap where we left off in the last shiur, we spoke about this amazing, this fantastic approach and revelation of what would be considered as the curse on humanity, and we turned it around into a discovery program journey to reveal our true essence. We discussed the importance of revealing our own Luchot HaBrit, our own tables. And this is something that we come to this world with, this wiring system, this pipeline system that is injected in each and every one of us. At the time that we're coming down to the world, we brought the Gaon Vilna and the Shla Kadosh that explain the Gemara that our rabbis say that when the baby is in the womb of his mother, so he has angels that teach him Torah. So the Gaon asks, how can we teach the Ubar, the fetus, Torah? He already learned all the Torah when the Neshama was in the Kisei HaKavod, in the throne of Hashem. So the Gaon says, we engrave, chokekim, we implant that essence, that system, that wiring system into the baby. And when the baby comes to the world, through that curse that is called Bezeat Apecha Tochal Lechem, through that curse of Adam HaRishon, that after he ate from the Etz HaDaat, from the tree of knowledge, then we have to toil, we have to work hard, we have to invest effort, sweat equity, until we're able to reveal that true essence, that true pipeline, so that eventually through that wiring system, we can then allow all the wisdom that we're exposed to, all the knowledge that we're exposed to, and channel it properly in the right places in our essence, so that we can use it to change ourselves, to better ourselves, to elevate ourselves, impact our surrounding and the people around us. And this is what Chachamim call or relate to in the Torah as chukim. Im bechukotai telechu, we said, Rashi says, sheteyu amelim b'Torah, you should toil in the chukim, in the chukot of the Torah. And the chok, we said chok, comes from the Lashon chakika, something that is chakuk, that is engraved, that is dug in order to create this pipeline for the water to be channeled properly. And we brought an example, a simple example. Imagine you have a mikveh and you have to fill it up with water. So if you pour water all over the place, so you're going to have a big loss factor in water, but also it will take a tremendous amount of time to fill up that mikveh. So not only that you waste water, but you also waste time. However, if you pour the water in that pipeline, so you will fill up the mikveh much faster, and your loss factor of water will be diminished. The whole avodah, the whole work that we have to do, our rabbis come and tell us, is to work very, very hard to understand our wiring system, to understand our build-up, our pipeline, just so that we can benefit from everything that surrounds us the proper way, but also so that we can connect with everyone. Because as we said, Israel, Am Yisrael Chai, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, there's this concept of achdut, of unity. The only way we can be one is if we understand how we plug one with each other, how we connect. But if we don't know who we are, how can you connect with people? How can you understand people? How can you know with which individual how to connect and how to address this relationship? Very, very difficult. If we leave it to randomness, as we can see it today, we get to chaos. Chaos socially, chaos in communities, in relationships, all the way to chaos internally at home. And worse, chaos internally with ourselves. If we don't know who we are, we don't know our pipeline system, our wiring system. So we're just, like we said in the past, we live a life of behavior, of being reactional. We go in circle, we never progress, we never advance. So that's what we learned in the last year. However, what we need to address at this point is how do we tap in, or how do we approach that wiring system? How do we reveal it? How do we understand it? How do we address it? How do we identify it? And we explained also that this pipeline, this wiring system, is something very special. It's the Luchot HaBerit, is the personal tables of each and every one of us that are here ready for the wisdom of Hashem to come and write on us, certify our actions, write this beautiful story, this beautiful lifestyle. What Shlomo HaMelech says, Tov Shem Mishem and Tov. We want a good name. We want to be recognized, remembered for good actions, for a strong impact, and leave behind us a legacy of good and of wisdom and of values. So it's much, much greater than just feeling good that you know who you are. It's really serving your real purpose for humanity. So how do we address it, and how can we get better at it? So if we look at the Torah, Matan Torah, when we received the Torah in Har Sinai, all that commitment that happened came with what we call a brit. A brit is a covenant. Now, not a covenant in the legal term that are binding two individuals with a piece of paper or with a law. The covenant that happened during Har Sinai, at the time when we received the Torah, is a covenant from Hashem and Am Yisrael and humanity to really, really be exposed to Hashem's wisdom and Hashem's greatness. The Lashon, the terminology that the Torah uses, that Chachamim use, is called Kritut Brit. What's a Brit? What's a covenant, according to the Torah? And especially when it's called Kritut Brit, the rupture, the separation of a covenant. Apparently, it sounds very contradictory. The Ramban explains the following. A Brit is when you have two individuals making a Brit, in the terminology of the Torah, is when one gives the other something from himself, of himself. And now it becomes an essential part of the other person. Something that the other person no longer separate himself with. This is a covenant. So if we understand the magnitude of what happened, is Hashem basically took a part of himself, Kiviyachol, and basically gave it to us. He gave to Am Yisrael, he gave in humanity a piece of himself, if you will, that became an essential part of our own essence. Something we cannot dispute, we cannot reject, we cannot contradict, and we cannot question. Like Hashem says, Chukim chakakti, gzerot gazarti, ve'en lachem reshut leharer ba'em. Hashem says, I engraved in you chukim. I made this wiring system, and I impose factual gzerot decree on creation, and you cannot question it. But instead of question it, go and learn from it and reveal it and address it and internalize it and identify it. So in order to be able to, we see that there's a very strong alliance and connection between the wiring system, the chukim, those tables, the luchot that have been injected in us, but in a form of what is called the brit, of a covenant. It's an alliance, it's a pact, it's a union that was created in order to feel the responsibility on one end, but also to recognize the engagement and the, if you will, sacrifice and trust and love that Hashem has in humanity and in Am Yisrael. This is the concept of a Berit. And this is what keeps vibrant, keeps alive that covenant. The covenant, keeps alive that system, that wiring system, and keeps it well internalized in our essence. Now, if we dive in and we look at what were the Brit, what was the covenant about? So we find in the Torah that there are 3 times where Hashem made a covenant with us, with Am Yisrael. The first one we know is in Matan Torah, in Har Sinai. The second one is in Arvot Moab. And the third one, according to the Rambam, in the Parasha of Nitzavim. Hashem took three steps, or took 3 opportunities to reinforce that covenant and make sure that it's well protected, that the wiring system is well protected and connected to us. On a deeper level, it's coming to tell us that you have 3 ways to connect to that wiring system. If there are 3 britot, each covenant is here to connect, to keep alive, to keep strong the wiring system. So there are different ways to penetrate it, or 3 ways that we should reveal in order to really understand properly the wiring system, that chukim, those tables that are inside of us. And those 3 gates, if you will, those 3 britot are focusing on different aspects. If you look carefully at the britot, at the covenant, there's 3 covenants, you see it revolves around what? Around all berachot, the blessings, and kelalot, and the curses. To the point where people, when they learn the Torah, they're scared to read the brachot or the kelalot, and they say, oh, that doesn't, we don't want this to be applied, chas v'shalom. But the reality is that the Torah does not talk about only the klala or the beracha. It's talking about the brit. It's talking about this covenant that implies, that has in it all the blessings, and chas v'shalom, God forbid, the opposite, the curses. That what we need to understand and really internalize is that there's something amazing. Is that the covenant, basically, if we're coming to address it and identify it, it's the brachot and the klarot, the blessings and the curses that are written in the Torah. For what purpose? For what purpose? In order for us to recognize and realize that all those blessings that are written in the Torah and all those curses that are written in the Torah are not something external, are not some suppositions and extrapolation of things that could happen, but those essences live within ourselves. They are part of us. We have in us all the berachot, and we have in us all the kelalot. But if we don't know what to use, and what to do in order to trigger the berachot, chas v'shalom, our actions can trigger the opposite. They can trigger kalot, they can trigger curses. If you look at the Torah, all those berachot and all those kelalot are the brit that Hashem has with Am Yisrael. But on this world, you don't have any bracha for the future world, and you don't have kelala, curses for the future world. Everything revolves around this world. And revolves around the three-dimensional pillars that we've addressed. The Ashan, the time, the space, and life. So those three pillars have in it an impact that lives within ourselves, that is called the Brit, the covenant. And what is that covenant made of? It's made of tremendous berachot, tremendous blessings, and God forbid the opposite. And this is what we need to connect to and understand in order to align our actions to trigger the berachot, to understand what not to do, to be safe from the curses, and through that work, through that avodah, be able to understand our pipeline, to understand our wiring. Because the wiring system that we are made of is the buildup of our neshama, the buildup of our soul. So instead of being in a random lifestyle where you can see a blessing one day and God forbid see a curse the other day and going crazy because you don't understand what's flying, you need to understand what this covenant, what this berit really means, what it entails. And once you educate yourself with what it entails, then you can align your actions, and suddenly you will see how your actions and your essence are really one and are triggering powerful reactions, are generating amazing berachot. This is what is expected from us. And this is where the intricacy of the hard toiling and effort and work really comes. In the ability to educate ourselves and understand that berit, that covenant, that berit that Hashem made with us, that has a three-dimensional connection, which is again the impact on space, the impact on time, and the impact on life. Now, when we live our life without thinking too much, well, we go ahead and we take it as it is, hoping that we're not going to step on an explosive mine. But is that really a way to live? When you can really control your beracha, your blessing, and generate more and more and more and more blessing? It doesn't make any sense. Yet, because we don't understand our wiring system, because we don't understand what it entails, what it's made of, and what it takes to trigger what, we're in the loss. So we're going to say some people, they have more mazal, they have an easier time with life than others. But that's not the real answer. The answer is inside each and every one of us. And all it takes is time to study and learn and understand what we have inside of us. Rabotai, we have all the berachot in the Torah. Every beracha that you read in the Torah is not an outcome. That's something that might happen. It lives, it's part of our DNA. It's part of our wiring system. And all it takes is press the button and you're going to see the reaction and you're going to see the beracha. So instead of seeing a good outcome and say, wow, look, that's such a blessing. No, you trigger your own blessing. You align yourself with one direction, with one path, or God forbid, another path. It all depends on you. It's something that is in our hands. It's something that is in our full control. This is how much trust, how much love, how much attention God gave to Am Yisrael and humanity. We have to really internalize this because it's spectacular. And Ezra Sofer, who instituted a lot of the laws of prayers that we have today, said that before Shavuot and before Rosh Hashanah, we have to read the two parashiyot, one in Torat Kohanim and the one in Mishneh Torah, before Shavuot and before Rosh Hashanah. And why do we read all the curses and the blessings before Rosh Hashanah and before Shavuot, before Atzeret, which is Shavuot, in order to put an end to all the klalot, to put an end to all the curses. So, if you think about it, if a curse is an outcome that is not in my hand, and it's as if Hashem comes and slaps a person on the hand and says, bad boy, then what can you stop? Or you're a good boy, you're a bad boy. Yeah? And if it's not in my hands, and it's whenever Hashem wants, then okay. If it will come when it will come. But here, Ezra Sofer comes and says, no, you're going to read this portion of the Torah, and by reading the portion of the Torah, you will be able to eradicate, erase, annul all the curses, and be ready to accept, to embrace all the blessings. How does that work? Here is the biggest proof to what we're learning and what we're saying. And it's a Gemara in the tractate of Megillah, page Lamed Aleph Amud Bet. Ezra Sofer reveals to us that when you read the Torah, when you read the part where you have all the curses and all the blessings and then the curses, what does it do? Well, if you know what you're reading, you're really making an accounting and creating awareness of what's really breathing and living within you. So really what you're doing and accomplishing, creating awareness of the power, the firepower that has been injected in you, just so that, oh, I don't want this, I versus only want the blessings. That in itself is enough to get of all the curses and potential curses and the trigger of your actions that can lead to curses. Awareness, knowledge. Why? Because this is what lives amongst each and every one. So if we understand that we are the blessings and we are our own curses, and we address it properly, and we learn about it, and we understand it, so we're going to align our actions adequately. We're going to align ourselves properly, because no one wants to be exposed to a curse. Even a person that doesn't believe, you have a 50-50. You have a cup of water, 50%. The chance there is a poison in it, 50% there's no. Anybody that has a little bit of a normal mind will say, I don't want to drink that water. 50-50, I don't know. Why should I take a chance? Here's the same thing. Here the Torah comes and tells you, listen, this is bad. This will yield bad things and this will yield good things. Once again, this is what you yield and this is your action will create. Nothing else. Hashem already gave you all the power. one direction or the other. All we have to do is understand and read the manual, instruction manual. If you take a machine and you don't know how to use it, it might blow up in your face. And what are you going to go and sue the manufacturer and tell the manufacturer, well, listen, why didn't you tell me that I cannot put a bottle of gas on fire? The manufacturer is going to tell you, well, if you read the instruction manual, it will tell you, please be careful, do not take this bottle next to fire. Everything today comes with a disclosure, comes with the legal, the privacy, what to do, what not to do, instruction manual. Here's the same thing. This is the most beautiful blessing and gift Hashem gave us. He gave us, forget about all the Torah, which is in itself an endless well of wisdom and of knowledge. But only if you learn, if you understand the 3 parashiot where you have the Brit, the 2 parashiot where you have the Beracha and the Klala, and you understand it, then the fact that you read and understand it already brings back to vibrancy, to and strength, the Berit, this covenant that you and Hashem have and live every second. It's just in a dormant stage. Once you've done that and your actions are aligned logically because it makes sense, what's the next step? The next step is that suddenly you're going to see that, well, if you pour water in the proper pipeline, you're going to see the reaction. You're going to see where the water ends up going inside that well, inside that mikveh, and you're filling up your mikveh. That's the beracha. You're not going to want to change. And suddenly you're going to see that your wiring system is working. You're going to use your knowledge, apply it to your actions, apply it to your awareness. Things make sense. Results are great. You are blessed. This is the biggest blessing that Hashem gave us. That we are our own blessing. But chas v'shalom, we can be our worst enemy. This is the responsibility that we have. And this is how and where we need to put. Instead of going and looking for answers all over the world and questioning and finding solutions and listening to whoever, thinking that maybe somebody else has the answer. Rabotai, the answer is in each and every one of us. The answer lives within us. So let's use and apply. You know, I'm talking and I'm saying words that sounds maybe great, but if you internalize those shiurim, you have tremendous secrets of the Torah in the most amazing exposure that's in front of us all the time. Why live the life of a ani? Why live the life of somebody that's poor intellectually and is in actions when we can be so rich in knowledge, so rich in blessings, so rich in wisdom, so rich in outcome? That we have to toil. That's the price. That is the price. And remember, this is something that's part of us, that lives within us. The example that the Torah brings up also about the Brit, the Torah, in Melachi, at the end of Melachi, it says, to man, Eshet beritecha. Your wife is your Brit. What does that mean, the wife is your Brit? The unity, the union, the covenants that putting together a husband and wife is so one. You are so one with your wife. You just can't separate. To the point that to a level of halacha, a husband cannot come as a witness for his wife. The rabbi says, say why? So it's very simple. It's we're not scared that you're going to lie, but how can you witness on yourself? You cannot witness on yourself. If I come and I say, I want to witness of myself, can I? I say, impossible. You can witness of somebody else. Witnessing is an outsource that's coming to address an action of somebody else. But how can you witness on yourself? The Torah says when a husband and wife are one, this unity, this covenant, this brit between the husband and wife is so strong that now the wife is part, is an extension of the husband, and the husband an extension of his wife. All the way to the point where you cannot come and witness on her behalf. And she cannot witness on your behalf. That's how one you are. That same level of unity, that same level of one exists inside of every one of us. This brit, this wiring system. All we have to do is turn on our caring system, our intellect, our awareness, a little bit of knowledge, not too much, in specific places, in Torah Kohanim, in the Bechukotai, and in the Mishneh Torah, where the brachot and the klalot are. Kitavo. And that's it. And use it properly, apply it, test it, and you're going to see that the outcome is not in the world to come. It's here right away on the spot. Because what we need to know and remember is that we are our biggest beracha. So let's use it, let's benefit from it, and let's enjoy that beracha. Can you imagine if each and every one of us was mastering this bracha as a pipeline, as being Am Echad, one people interconnected, how your bracha becomes my bracha becomes your bracha, and we start a flood of bracha instead of being again fragmented in pieces, and this one thinking he has bracha and the other one thinking that he's cursed. Nobody's cursed and nobody's blessed. The biggest bracha that we have is the opportunity to be blessed. The biggest blessing is the opportunity to be blessed. So let's use it properly. Shavua Tov, Chodesh Tov u'Mazal Tov, and Be'ezrat Hashem, may we all benefit from each other's